Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Gardener, and thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling. It's November 13th. Today we celebrate the German-American botanist who lost all of his botanical work in the Columbia River. And we'll learn about a man who started the Bartlett Arboretum. We'll remember the agave expert who never wanted a desk job, and we'll take a look back at an article about the relationship between royalty and the number of plants they owned. We'll hear some inspiring quotes about the garden and the very first snow. And we grow that garden library with a cookbook for gardeners by an American garden celebrity. And then we'll wrap things up with the story of a 1916 chrysanthemum show. And just a reminder, if you're listening to the show while you're at home, you can just ask your smart speaker to play the show for you. Just ask Alexa or Google to play the latest episode of the Daily Gardener podcast. And she will. It's just that easy. And don't forget, you can send your garden pictures, your stories, birthday wishes, and so forth to me at my email at jennifer@thedailygardener.org, and I'll share them in the Gardener Greetings segment. Today's curated news is an article that was featured in The Atlantic. It was written by Clive Thompson. It's called Trees Are Time Machines. It's a fascinating article. I shared it in the Facebook group for the show. And if you'd like to check out any of my curated news articles and original blog posts for yourself, you're in luck because I share all of it there in the listener community. So there's no need to take notes or search for links. The next time you're on Facebook, just search for Daily Gardener Community, where you'd search for a friend and then request to join. I'd love to meet you in the group. Here's today's brevities. Today is the anniversary of the day that the German botanist Frederick Lueders lost all of his botanical work. On this day, November 13th, in 1843. Frederick had been botanizing along the Columbia River in Oregon, and for 3 years he had been collecting specimens across North America. He had just encountered the explorer John Fremont when all of his work, which was secured in a canoe nearby, was drawn into the rapids. Frederick plunged into the river, and he only managed to retrieve his copy of A Flora by Torrey and Gray. The devastating loss was recorded in John Fremont's journal. He wrote, "In the natural concern I felt for his misfortune, I gave to the cove the name Lueders Bay." So he was so moved by this experience that he actually named that a bay after poor Frederick. Well, for Frederick's part, the loss of his specimens was devastating. The loss of his instruments and his correspondence with key botanists like Asa Gray and Dr. Engelmann was almost too much for him. Frederick determined that his best course of action was to return home. He traveled south around the tip of Chile and then on to England. And it took him a full year to get back to Hamburg after his mishap on the Columbia. Now, Frederick didn't stay in Germany long. He returned to America within the next year. By 1851, he had made his way to Wisconsin, and he spent the rest of his life in Sauk City. He dabbled there in astronomy, but he also became a florist. A biographical sketch said that in his old age, Frederick Lueders was mainly devoted to his flowers. And today is the birthday of the physician, naturalist, and civic leader of the South Central Kansas town of Belle Plaine, Dr. Walter E. Bartlett, who was born on this day, November 13th, 1870. In 1910, Walter started the Bartlett Arboretum by purchasing 15 acres of land on the edge of a town called Belle Plaine, about 20 miles south of Wichita. The property had good soil, and it also had a little creek. One of Walter's initial moves was to dam up the creek and create a lake for waterfowl. In the flat expanse of Kansas, Walter was tree obsessed. He planted them everywhere, lining walkways, driveways, and riverbanks. And Walter was civic-minded. He enhanced the Arboretum with a running track, a trap shooting area, and a baseball diamond, complete with a grandstand. After Walter died, the park was managed by his landscape architect son, Glenn. Glenn had studied the gardens at Versailles, noting they were transformed out of sand dunes and marshes. Back at home, the Bartlett Arboretum had similar challenges. Glenn married Margaret Myers, an artist, a magazine fashion designer, a floral designer, a garden club organizer, and an instructor. Combining their fantastic skill sets, Glenn and Margaret turned the Arboretum into something quite beautiful. Together, they incorporated tree specimens from all over the world. Using dredged dirt from the lake, they created man-made islands. And at one point, the Bartlett Arboretum was the only arboretum between the Mississippi River and the Rocky Mountains. Known for its beautiful spring tradition called tulip time, the Arboretum featured a tulip bed with over 40,000 bulbs. In 1997, the Arboretum was sold to Robin Macy. Macy was one of the founding members of the Dixie Chicks, and she's the current steward of the Bartlett Arboretum. Naturally, Robin incorporated music into the Arb. The Facebook group for the Arboretum recently shared a register page from April 7th, 1929, and across the top of the register, Walter Bartlett quoted Wordsworth. He wrote, "He is the happiest who has the power to gather wisdom from a flower." Well, if you get a chance to visit the Arboretum, you'll likely agree that the folks who tend the flowers and trees at the Bartlett Arboretum make people happy all year long. And it was on this day, November 13th, 1982, that the newspaper shared a great story about the author of Agaves of Continental North America, Howard Scott Gentry. Here's what it said. This elder statesman of the botanical world is a first-class charmer when you get to his subject, his love for the wilds of Sonora and Chihuahua, Mexico. The years he spent overseas as an agricultural explorer for the USDA, and how he gradually came to know more about agaves than any other human being. After Howard completed a doctorate in botany at the University of Michigan, he became a USDA agricultural explorer. Based in Maryland, Gentry traveled the world, locating, researching, and collecting plants for the government. During the time Gentry collected, the USDA was highly interested in plants in the agave family and plants in the wild yam family, which contained compounds that seemed useful in treating arthritis. Because of his far-flung collecting, he traveled in 24 countries, Gentry was regularly introducing and writing about new plants. It was high-profile work in the botanical community. And regarding his career, Gentry once reflected, "I refused several times to become a desk man for the USDA. It was a chance to cut out all the travel, but I told them, nope, not me. I want to work with plants, not people. People are problems. And it was on this day, November 13th in 2010, that Jane Powers wrote an excellent botanical history piece for the Irish Times. I especially loved this article because Jane correlated the number of bedding plants a person ordered during the middle of the 19th century and their corresponding personal wealth. Here's what Jane wrote. In the heyday of bedding, the number of plants that a person displayed was a gauge of their wealth and status. According to the head gardener at the Rothschild estate at Halton in Buckinghamshire, it was 10,000 plants for a squire, 20,000 plants for a baronet, 30,000 plants for an earl, and 40,000 plants for a duke. In Unearthed Words, today's words are about the first snow from the #1 New York Times best-selling author of Sex and the City, Candace Bushnell. Thank goodness for the first snow. It was a reminder, no matter how old you became and how much you'd seen, things could still be new if you were willing to believe they still mattered. And here's a quote about the garden from the American garden writer Jeff Cox. A garden is a love song, a duet between a human being and Mother Nature. Love that one. It's time to grow that garden library with today's book, P. Allen Smith's Seasonal Recipes from the Garden by P. Allen Smith. This book came out in 2010, and the subtitle is A Garden Home Cookbook. Well, I fell in love with Allen's cookbook the minute I discovered that he makes his pie crust the same way my mom taught me to make my pie crust. And that little connection won my trust. As one of America's best-known gardeners and garden designers, Allen celebrates every season with reliable recipes that showcase fruits, vegetables, and herbs at their garden fresh best. Allen's debut cookbook features 120 recipes, 30 for each season. There's nothing outlandish or off-the-charts difficult here. Allen's appeal is that he focuses on the dishes that everyone loves to eat. And I thought I'd share some of my favorites with you. This is not the complete list because I have so much marked in this cookbook, but I thought I'd give you a little sampling of some of the things from each season. So here we go. Chilled pea soup with bacon and whipped cream, salad of asparagus, edamame, arugula, and cheese. That's a fantastic salad. Radish top pasta, Aunt Martha's corn pudding, rosemary, garlic smoked pork tenderloin. So easy, so good. Parmesan, pecan crisps, roasted red pepper soup. I need to make that. It's perfect for this time of year. Slow cooker lamb stew, savory rosemary butternut squash, making it for Thanksgiving, and tiny orange muffins. Again, not a complete list. Another aspect of this cookbook that I love is that Allen shares delightful personal stories with every recipe. They're charming. This book is 256 pages of easy-going recipes that utilize the goodness from our gardens and will make you feel like you're cooking with a trusted garden friend. Believe me, you can get a copy of P. Allen Smith's Seasonal Recipes from the Garden by P. Allen Smith and support the show using the Amazon link in today's show notes for around $4. I kid you not. Used copies are about $4. I just sent one to my mom. And again, this would be another wonderful book for a Secret Santa present if you have a very low budget for that, because man, great book, not expensive. All right, finally, here's something sweet to revive the little botanic spark in your heart. It was on this day, November 13th, in 1916, that the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette shared a sweet little article about the 16th annual Chrysanthemum Flower Show in Washington, D.C. Now, one of the guards at the show, who had been repeating, keep to the right, all morning long to all of the visitors that were streaming into the greenhouse, was interviewed for this newspaper article. And he made the following observations. If you ever get the idea that people aren't interested in flowers, just give a flower show. I love that. After the careless guests damaged some of the specimens, the guard said, sometimes people take entirely too much interest in flowers. If you don't watch them, they will break them off and take them home as souvenirs. Crazy, even happening way back then. Well, during the 1900s, chrysanthemum shows were held annually in most large cities throughout the country. Now, regarding the D.C. show, the Pittsburgh Post reported, the question everybody asks, pointing to a big white Queen Mary or a small lavender pom-pom, is, where can I buy seeds of such varieties as this? Well, at the show, over 250 varieties of chrysanthemums were exhibited, and the whole greenhouse was a riot of color, with yellow and lavender predominating. Interest in chrysanthemums is increasing every year, and it said national shows have been held every season for the last 16 years, but there has never been such large attendance before. Great post. The 1916 Washington, D.C. Chrysanthemum Flower Show. Wish we could turn back time. Thanks for listening to The Daily Gardener. And remember, for a happy, healthy life, garden every day. The Daily Gardener is produced in lovely Wyoming, Minnesota with the help of Paige Mance, Brooke Bierbaum, Kiana Rayleigh, Maddie Doyle, Natalie Decker, and Eric Begay. You can find The Daily Gardener on all your favorite social media. You can follow the show on Instagram, and listeners always have a standing invitation to join the free Facebook group for the show. Just search for Daily Gardener Community the next time you're on Facebook and request to join. All the stories and books that are featured on the show can be found over at thedailygardener.org, thedailygardener.org. And while you're there, be sure to sign up for my free Friday newsletter. Last but not least, you can share your own gardener greetings on the show by emailing me at jennifer@thedailygardener.org. I'm your host, Jennifer Ebling, and as always, have a great day in the garden, and we'll see you tomorrow.